Hello everyone, this is Dr. Carlos Galera Zarco. I'm delighted to deliver this guest session about servitization. Okay, first of all, I would like to present the learning objectives of this session. The first one is to reinforce the importance of the paradigm shift in value creation in order that you can understand better the connection between this shift in value creation and the increasing importance of services. The second one is to discuss about the origins of servitization, particularly in the manufacturing sector. The third one will be to understand the concepts of service innovation and product service system. Also, you will perceive the connection between technological innovation and the growing possibilities for service offering. And finally, we will reflect on the application of servitization in project-based companies and in the built environment in particular. Well, before starting the theoretical background of the concept, I would like to set the scene in order to know better the context in which this phenomenon is taking place. The first aspect to consider is the growing importance of services in advanced economies. In the most developed countries, the weight of services in the GDP is increasingly growing. The second point to consider is the transformation in many economies from selling products to offer services. And this transformation is taking place because of two main factors. The first one is the development of new technologies, particularly the monitoring technologies, the ability to gather more data and to analyze this data. And the second one is globalization, because globalization make most developed economies to compete with other economies that can produce where the production cost is much lower. And this has higher implication to make products than to offer services. Clearly, this affects much more the production processes. Before presenting the concept of servitization, I would like to provide some theoretical background. In particular, I would like to explain the change on the dominant logic for value creation. The traditional dominant logic for value creation is known as goods dominant logic. And this dominant logic considers that the value creation is firm centric. It means that it's the company who exclusively create the value. The customer, the clients, only perceive the value in the exchange between the goods and the money. It means when the client buy the product or the service. So there is no value in issue. The value is in exchange. Okay? But this logic doesn't take into account the changes and the context of the client, the context in which the consumer uses the product. In opposition to the goods dominant logic arose the service dominant logic. This new paradigm considers that the value creation is customer centric. It means that the value is created through interactions between the firms and the clients. So, according with this logic, the companies make a proposition of potential value, but the value is actually realized in use. This means that an higher customer orientation becomes a key strategy in value creation. So the companies started to pay much more attention to the development of relationships and dialogue with the customer. Basically, the companies discover that they need to know better how the customer, how the clients perceive the value. So they need new channels of communications with the clients. And these kind of interactions are facilitated through activities such as provision of services. So this is one of the key aspects in the development of services in economy. I think that with an easy example you can understand better the two dominant logic and the value perception. Imagine that you are buying these trainers or this laptop. The question is, when do you perceive the value? When you go to the shop and buy the laptop or the trainers? Or actually when you are using your laptop to do some coursework or to play a video game or to watch this lecture? The same with the trainers. When are you going to perceive the value? When you pay for them or after running for 1 hour? So it seems clear that the client perceives the value in use, and this value perception will depend also on the context. For example, the use for the laptop could be quite different. Some of you maybe like to use the laptop to play video games, and maybe others just need it to work or to communicate with other people. Maybe some people use the trainers every day, and maybe other people like to use it because they have a fancy design and they only want to work with them. So, as this conception of value in use becomes the new dominant logic, it seems clear that there is a growing service orientation. Previously, the companies focused on meeting the customer needs through business activities, but now they discover that they need to know better the context of use and the patterns of use of the consumers. So they need to put the focus on establishing and maintaining long-lasting relationship with their broader customer base. And align it with that, the companies are trying to offer customized services, particularly based on the use of new technologies. So basically, since the arrival of the service economy in the late 60s, the service have become an important competitive capability for different companies in different sectors. Here you can see three main factors for service orientation. The economic factors, because through services the companies can get higher profit margins. The client satisfaction, because it's clear that through services and higher demand levels can be satisfied. And the achievement of competitive advantages, because services are more complicated to imitate and implement. And more recently, the companies can get value of data from monitoring services. Here you can see how in some industries the sale of products accounts for only a small proportion of the overall revenues. So it's clear that the services have an higher profit margin, and this is a very good reason for service orientation. So in this context of service orientation is where the phenomenon of servitization emerges. Servitization can be conceptualized as the transformation of a firm from a focus on selling products to selling complete solutions, basically by adding services to the product. Servitization is based on the emergence of bundles that combine services, products, and knowledge to add value to the traditional firm's offering. So obviously this phenomenon arose in the context of manufacturing industry, when many manufacturers, particularly in the most developed economies, struggle to keep their competitive advantage because of the globalization and reduced production cost in other countries. However, despite there is a clear competitive advantage on adopting servitization, many manufacturers remain reluctant to venture into that, particularly because this involves some changes and transformation both at organizational level and for their business models. So the challenge is on helping manufacturers on exploiting their own competencies to build a strong servitization element. In terms of the services that the companies can offer, we can distinguish three types of services. The first one are the base services, which are the traditional ones, basically based on product provision and spare parts. The interesting ones are the intermediate services and the advanced services. The intermediate ones focus on the maintenance of product condition through services, for example, on condition monitoring. And the advanced ones focus on provide a capability through the performance of the product. Here you can see some example of product service innovation from some manufacturers which are pioneers in servitization implementation. The most typical example is Rolls-Royce, which started to offer a service called Power by the Hour. Rolls-Royce changed its business model from selling engines to sell power by the hour, working hours of their engines. Similar approach was followed by Xerox with the implementation of pay-per-click business models. Instead of selling printers, they started to sell copies. Other examples are MAN Trucks or Michelin that implement services of fleet management. It is also clear that the digitalization and the technological development influence the service orientation. Here you have a classical example about the music industry. Some years ago, the music industry only had physical elements to sell music, such as the CD or the LP, so they had a physical business models. However, with the development of the MP3 technology, they were able to start to develop a physical digital business model. And even nowadays, with the digitalization development, the physical elements are disappearing and the music industry is going towards a completely digital business model. So a disruptive innovation clearly has influence on the evolution of functions and also it allows to achieve a new client segmentation. So at that point of the presentation, I suppose that you have clear that the service dominant logic requires continuous and smooth relationship with the clients. But in addition, the development of advanced services requires a deep understanding of the operation itself of the physical assets. So this is the context in which the new technologies and the digitalization processes become so relevant in service provision. And currently, we can identify a number of technologies that, from the standpoint of value creation, can be considered as service-oriented technologies. These service-oriented technologies increase their dialogue with the clients and allow to understand the experience of use, which is an important objective in order to understand the value perception by the clients. And in addition, these technologies allow companies to achieve other strategic purposes based on data collection and data analytics. Here you can see a number of these technologies, such as monitoring technologies, the Internet of Things, cloud computing, pervasive computing, big data, artificial intelligence, and digital twins. So, in the combination between technology and physical products, we find the product service system. So, a product service system is basically a physical product that allows the provision of services that are usually related with the functional utility of the product. A very simple example of product service system is this toothbrush. By integrating technology, this toothbrush collects data on how we clean our teeth and implement a personalized service that help us to improve our dental health. So this is clearly a customer-oriented solution in which at the same time the company is gathering data about the use we are doing of this physical product. Other example, little bit more complex, is the fleet solution implemented by Goodyear. Basically, they are implementing sensors in the wheels in order they can collect a lot of data about localization and use. Later, they can store all this data in the cloud to develop algorithms to identify issues and to provide a service of car condition report. And based on this data, they also can provide services of reparation and maintenance. In this environment of advanced services, we can identify two different models, the platform models and the integral solutions model. The platforms are products, services, or technologies that provide the foundation upon which outside firms can develop their own complementary products, technologies, or services. Maybe the most clear example is the iPhone. Obviously, the iPhone is a product service, but at the same time, this is a platform because many other developers and companies can integrate their apps and make businesses based on these platforms. Similar case happens with Man Tract. In that case, Man allowed to use their tracks as a platform for other businesses to offer their services. The other model is the integral solutions. This is the case of Xerox or Tesla. So Tesla is offering a service of mobility for particular clients. They are delivering this capability through the automatic driving, updates on the software, and free charging for the entire life cycle of the car. So conceptually, the companies are developing smart connected products, and the capabilities of smart connected products can be categorized into four main areas, which are monitoring, control, optimization, and autonomy, with an increasing degree of technological development and complexity. To finalize, I would like to talk about the possibilities of servitization implementation in project-based firms and in the built environment in particular. The first aspect to consider is that the project-based companies have different characteristics than the manufacturers because of different ways in delivering the value, the degree of uncertainty, the close relation with the context in which the project is developed, and the low possibility of standardization. Some factors emerge as enabler for servitization strategy in project-based companies. The first one, and maybe the most important one, is the complexity of the project. The more complex the project is, the more chances to implement services we will have. Other enablers are customization degree, the duration of the project and lifespan, the relation with the client, the degree of innovation, the risk. The higher degree of the risk, the more likely we can implement services, the relationship with the suppliers, and the type of contract. And here you can see a model of servitization in civil engineering companies. Basically, what we proposed in this research article is that the service addition should take place throughout the different project phases, and it is possible to implement different services adapted for each phase. Particularly important is the implementation of technology during the project in order to monitor the execution process and the operation and maintenance of the physical assets. Through this sensorization of the physical asset, we are in the position to gather data, to analyze this data, and to achieve the key information that will provide very useful knowledge to create new service and to improve the processes in project management. Obviously, there is still much to be done for the development of servitization in project-based companies. However, the development of new technologies such as digital twin are increasing the chances to include services as part of the business model for the construction companies. Well, here you have some of the main conclusions from this session. First one is that the conception of value in use and the service nominal logic have led the increased importance of services into the new economies. Second one is that we have different types of services, but the advanced ones are able to deliver a capability to the client through the performance of a product. Also now, you understand the definition of product service systems, which are products with embedded technology to offer services. The third important conclusion is that the emergence of new technological advances increases the current and future possibilities to offer new and more complex services. And at the end, we were reflecting on servitization adoption in project-based firms, and we were able to identify some enablers for servitization in projects. But it's important that you realize that the implementation model of servitization in projects relies on the use of smart technologies. This is all from me. I hope you enjoyed this session. Here you have the references, and I'm more than happy if you want to contact me about this topic because this is one of the main research interests. Goodbye.